Good evening, everyone. My name is Floyd Simmons. I am with White Mountain Radio. I'm also with Sports Zone Radio, locally in the White Mountains. And this evening, it's my privilege to be the moderator for the Navajo County Candidate Forum for the open seats on the Navajo County Board of Supervisors, District 4, and Navajo County Superior Court Judge, Division 2. Thank you for joining us, both visually, online, and in person here at our facility. Let's start the evening now with the Pledge of Allegiance, and that is going to be delivered by Show Low City Councilman Brent Hatch.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, and with liberty and justice for all.
Well, thank you to the Show Low Chamber of Commerce for hosting the forum and the City of Show Low for televising it on Sparklight Channel 56 and 1056. Also on the Show Low Facebook Live page and Show Low TV. I'll go over the format for this evening and provide some insight on what can be expected. Here this evening to provide assistance and to help keep us on time is Delila Edwards. She is the president of the Show Low Chamber of Commerce. There is one seat open for the Navajo County Board of Supervisors, District 4, and 3 candidates, Daryl Seymour, the incumbent, Greg Butler, and Allison Hefner. And for the County Superior Court Judge, Division 2, there is also one seat open and 2 candidates for that seat. That would be Robert Higgins, the incumbent, and Melinda Hardy. We will start with the County Board of Supervisors and then move to the Superior Court Judge. We'll also follow the same format for both Supervisor and Superior Court Judge. The primary election will be held on August 4th, and the general election will be held on November 3rd. You can go to the Navajo County election page to locate your polling place. Questions for this evening's forum have been submitted by members of the community and the Show Low Chamber of Commerce Board and have been randomly selected in no particular order. Each candidate will be given 2 minutes for an opening statement. Delila will be keeping time and will show each of the candidates a warning at 30 seconds, at 15 seconds, and when it's time to stop. Prior to beginning, each candidate drew a number for starting order. I'll ask each candidate the same question, and they'll have 2 minutes to respond. Candidates will get a warning at 30 seconds, 15 seconds, and stop. We'll ask 3 to 5 questions, depending on how much time we have. Each candidate will be given the opportunity for a 90-second closing statement. We will then have the candidates rotate places and follow the same format. Let's begin the evening, and let's begin with our candidates for Navajo County Board of Supervisors. The first position was drawn by Allison Hefner. She'll be followed in the second position by Daryl Seymour, and then it'll be Greg Butler batting in the third spot in the order. Allison, we'll begin with you.
Okay, my name is Allison Hefner. I've lived in Navajo County for 27 years, all through Navajo County. I've been married to my wonderful husband, Robert Hefner, for 8 years. We have 3 beautiful children. I am a patriot. I am a community champion. I love working with the community. I love to ride motorcycles and shoot guns and have a good time. So I've been here for a long time working with the community. I'm very passionate, I'm sure like my other counterparts here, about the community and doing what I can to serve them. 2 minutes is never enough. So I hope that I got that in there.
Allison, thank you for that. And we go to the number 2 spot, that is Daryl Seymour.
Good evening, I'm Daryl Seymour, and I'm grateful to be here tonight. I'd like to first thank the Chamber of Commerce for sponsoring this, and Floyd for you being the moderator tonight, and the City of Show Low for putting this forum, letting us use their facility. I'd like to thank all of those who have signed my petition, as well as my committee members, and I'd like to thank the citizens. I am very grateful for my campaign manager, Sharon Hatch, who's here tonight, as well as my brother and my sister. I'm thankful for their support. I'm very grateful for a wife who stands behind me and supported me and has helped me over the years. I've lived in Show Low almost my entire life. I grew up here. I was born and raised in Show Low. I've served on the Show Low City Council for 16 years, and I've been the mayor for the past 8 years. So I really feel that I have an opportunity of serving. I'm currently the county supervisor for District 4. I was put in that position in December of last year to fill a vacancy of Steve Williams. I've loved to learn to love the county more in its diversity and the opportunities that it has and that it offers. I've always been willing to serve the citizens, to do what it takes to get the job done and to be successful. One of the things that I'm excited about, I've been a business owner, so I know what it is to lead. I know what it is to be able to balance a budget. The city of Show Low has a larger budget than what the Navajo County has. We've done through fiscal times. We've been able to make the best of good times as well as bad times. And one of the things that I'm grateful is I'm leaving the city very fiscally responsible. And I look forward to bringing that forward. This debate tonight will also be able to share things and talk about things, but this will be in the primary election on August 4th is when it will be decided. They will not go to the general election, so I want people to understand that. And I am excited to be here tonight, and thanks for your support.
Thank you. We'll go now to hear the opening statement of Greg Butler.
Thank you. Thank you very much for letting me be a part of this, and I've got some pretty darn good people to be running against right now as far as I'm concerned. And I want to thank you folks for putting this on and giving us the opportunity. I was born in Show Low, lived here all my life. Other than going to ASU, that's where I've lived, so been a while. I grew up here. I've been in business here all my life, different businesses too, because some of them didn't work and some of them did, you know, so I guess that's where I've learned a lot. Some of them you figure out when they're not going to work and when they are going to work, and you go from there. But I've got a great family that's been here, raised here. All my family. My father was the third mayor of Show Low here. My brother was the sheriff for Navajo County for 20 years. So we have a lot of history here in this community, and I have a lot of respect for it. I've been on fire boards, school boards. I am currently on the hospital district board. I've been on the hospital governing board. I've been on the county, Navajo County Industrial Development Board since 2007. I don't know, I can name a lot of things, but anyway, I just want you to know that I feel like I do have a lot of experience here and that I could do a good job, and I think that the two people over here are capable of doing the same thing. So I think you've got a good choice here to look at. And I just want to say that I hope I can do a good job if I get in there for you. So thank you.
Thank you. We'll begin our questions for the candidates. And a reminder that the questions for this evening's forum have been submitted by members of the community, along with the Show Low Chamber of Commerce board members. They submitted questions as well. These have been randomly selected in no particular order. We begin with Allison Hefner. She drew first. You get the first question, or the first shot at the first question. And this is that question. What are the most important challenges facing our county, and how do you propose to address them?
I love that question. Thank you. Social determinants of health, substance abuse, poverty, mental health. These are issues that are plaguing our workforce, and they're causing it to where our businesses don't have a pool to pull from. So addressing these issues and bringing community champions together, bringing nonprofits that serve these areas together to make sure that we are providing quality services for mental health in Navajo County, making sure that we're addressing these. We first have to admit these issues. I don't know how much of you are familiar with adverse childhood experiences, but it's what has led to our workforce today. We have a high substance abuse, 3 times higher than the rate of Arizona. We have a high poverty rate. 30% of our community members live in poverty. 11,000 of those are children. Now, that's people living underneath the water treading. That's not the people, or that's people drowning. That's not the people treading. So if you add that to that, we really have an issue in this community where we really need to start to fill the gaps, make sure that we have the resources to serve the workforce, the community members, so that our economy can grow. Because our economy is not going to grow if we don't have the correct workforce to serve it. So definitely social determinants of health. It's my background. That's what I worked in for many years, and it's what I continue to work in with my company and the different grants I manage. So.
Thank you. And on now to Daryl Seymour. The question is, what are the most important challenges facing our county, and how do you propose to address them?
I think one of our most important challenges we have, just not in our county, but in America, and that is our patriotism to a point. I also think that we have an onslaught of socialism, and we have a very need in our community, in our county, that we rise above that. On the north and on the south of our counties where we have tribal lands, it's important that we help those people make the most of themselves and the most of their utilities, the resources that they have. I think it's one of the challenges that we're going to have also is jobs. We're losing many jobs when the coal plants shut down, when the Peabody coal plant as well will close. We're going to suffer from loss of those jobs. It's interesting, I was able to talk with Congressman O'Halloran, and there is a proposal of $100 billion broadband that will be coming forward. And so it's very important that we take and we use that avenue to be able to help our rural areas expand in the broadband, the technology that will drive jobs to this area, that people can live in Show Low but work in San Francisco, Denver, they can commute. We can take our regional airport and expand that so people can fly in and out of here on a regular basis. That will drive more jobs, and that's something that will be coming down as we look at the infrastructure. I was on a phone call with Kirsten Sinema. They have $2 to $3 trillion, maybe as high as $6 trillion for infrastructure. So if we can use those things to help. I totally agree with Allison that there is a need of substance abuse. It's very important. The county has already identified that. They have resources. They're putting a couple of $1 million towards to help to educate people, but we do have to do that. We're working on a criminality to change that, so our sheriff and our county attorney is working on that drastically to change behavior as well. Those are challenges that we have.
Thank you. And now, Greg Butler, the question is, what are the most important challenges facing our county, and how do you propose to address them?
And I get to be last, right? These guys have covered it pretty good. No, well, I think the most important, and again, I'll go along with Darrell there, is the job situation and where we're going to be, because to me, that's the most important. This thing is going to get more serious, and we've got to be able to get a hold of that. We've got all kinds of, in my opinion, availability to do things. We've got a pulp mill out there that's sitting there that should be reclaimed some way and done something with to bring in more jobs. We should be doing something down on I-40 as far as bringing in people that can bring in factories and things like that can use the I-40. It's one of the lifebloods of this country. We've got that opportunity there. Up here in the White Mountains, we need to expand some way our camping and outdoor facilities in here, working with the Forest Service some way to try to get that going, because in my opinion, this is one end of the county that is hurting that way, and you see that with all the empty buildings and things we've got. We need to really push bringing business into this area, and in order to do that, we need to try to run this county like a business. In other words, we need to say, okay, here's where we're at. We've got this problem here. We need to sit down and say, here's where we're losing money. How are we losing it? What are we going to do with it? And go from there. So I guess my time's up.
Thank you. We will now rotate for the second question. And so first up will be Darrell Seymour. And here is question number 2. Should any part of the county budget be shielded from cuts? And if so, which area?
Shielded from cuts. The county budget is, as I stated, we just approved the tentative budget of $47 million. The county is the largest employer in the area here, 640 some odd employees. So when you look at that and you try to make everything work and you look at what we need to do, there's never enough money to go around for everything that you need. As far as cutting things, I wouldn't say that there's any one item that needs to be cut, but we do need to learn to generate more revenues. I would rather see us generate more revenues than go in and start cutting out programs. Healthcare is something that's very important to the employees that we have. We have worked to try to improve that. We have worked to try to improve employees' wages and make the standard of living better for all employees. We have there's never enough money to do roads, so you can't cut out roads, you can't cut out your public works. But I firmly feel that there's a lot of areas that we have duplication in, and that we can work to eliminate some of those. We can privatize some of those areas that might be able to save us some money. And as we identify more and more ways, the budget has to be more transparent, so more people are involved in the budget process. So we're working together, as Greg mentioned, we're working together as a team. We're collectively saying, how are we going to win this? How are we going to make it better? Tourism is an area that we've got to increase. We can't cut there. We've got to bring more things, treat this like a business, treat it like how do we generate more revenues, more so than looking at do we cut and where do we cut. We always have to be willing, though, to cut 10% of our budget. We did that in the city of Shola. We cut 10, then we cut another 10, and we cut the final 10. So we cut 30% when things were lean. We have to be able to be in that same position and identify those things when things get tough, and I'll do that.
Thank you. Greg Butler, the question to you is, should any part of the county budget be shielded from cuts, and if so, which area?
I can't think of any part of it that should be shielded. I'm sure there's certain ones that are very important, in my opinion, and not because my brother was a sheriff, but I think that your law enforcement you have to be really careful with that, because you need the law enforcement in there. And like Darrell said, you can talk about all of it. Every one of those departments need that money. So I agree with Darrell when it comes to that. What we need to do is to try to come up with more revenue, ways to bring revenue in, because I can't see really a lot of ways to cut. You know, I've had people say, well, there's 40 cars parked over there in the county yard there, and how come they're just parked there and nobody's using them? That's the kind of things I hear as a citizen out here. And then I can also, when I asked a question about that, well, most of them were used vehicles that the sheriff office finally wore out, so they finally gave it to somebody else to use on their thing. That's the kind of stuff I'm hearing, and Darrell probably can verify that a lot better than I could, because I'm not there to do it. But anyway, those are the kind of things I'm saying. But I really believe that the key thing is try not to cut anything we can. We're going to have to, if it gets tough enough, that's part of business. You're going to have to cut certain overhead. It's like what Darrell said about this city back then when they had to do that. And I think this county's probably getting to that point right now by losing what they're losing right now as far as income comes. They're going to have to take a hard look at it, and I can assume they're talking about that in their meetings right now. So, I think that that's one of the most important things is just to keep talking and working it and see what they're going to come up with.
Thank you. Allison, here's the question. Should any part of the country be shielded from cuts, and if so, which area?
So when I was the risk manager and emergency manager for Navajo County, I got some information. I was allowed to see some of the information, and the percentage of I think almost 80% of the budget goes into criminal justice, the sheriff's office, and everything there. One of the things that was a little bit disheartening is some of the money in public health, their funds, over 1.9, I think almost $2.5 million, is put into running the jail nurses, paying access payments. And that's funding, if you've experienced COVID, like most of us have, and what it's done to our community, I think that public health needs to be shielded from subsidizing some of the other departments. And that is something I'm very passionate about, something I saw as a public health person, something very hard to talk about. It's not, I don't know why it's done, and it's frustrating, because when you see what happens when public health goes, if you understand how quality of life works, you need economy, you need safety, and you need public health. And public health is everything. Public health isn't just hospitals. Public health is community centers. Public health is government. Public health is the police departments. It's all of that. What happens when you get a virus and it destroys everyone? What happens to your economy? What happens to your safety? Public health, it just goes right out the door. So if anything needs to be shielded, I think that we need to sit down and we need to look better at how we're spending money for public health, because healthcare is very important. I know that in Yavapai County, they have a healthcare facility that provides medical services to the community that is a lot cheaper. So I think that that's one of the things that I would look at, not just shielding, but kind of looking into that and making sure that we're secure in our public health services.
Thank you. Greg Butler, you get to bat first in this round of question.
Okay.
And that question is this. What do you see as the most pressing needs? And I'll repeat that again. What do you see as the most pressing needs for infrastructure or capital projects in the county?
You know, I can honestly tell you, I don't know for sure because I'm not involved like Daryl is. I'm not down there. I don't know for sure. I really believe the most pressing needs is to work on trying to get income. And I really believe that the best way to get that is to go out and I don't know why we don't push it a lot, but I think grant writing. If we could get people, hire people to go out, go to these schools, learn how to write grants. I know that back in the past there, when they had different things coming up, they would get these guys that learn how to write these grants, and ladies, and they would be able to go out and get that federal money. There's federal money and state money laying everywhere out there if they just go after it. We got to know how to go get it. And we need to get people trained to go out and look for that money. And then infrastructure-wise, I really can't tell you. That's probably more of a question that Daryl can tell you because he's involved with it, on a full-time basis. But that's one reason I would say that we need to get something going to where we can get that income coming in to do that, do whatever we need.
Thank you. Allison, the question is, what do you see as the most pressing needs for infrastructure or capital projects in the county?
Broadband, broadband, broadband. We need to have a way to communicate. Daryl brought it up earlier. It's very important. It's the next step that where we're going. We need to support that. I know that I was in Pine Top today trying to make a phone call and I had to run out to the road. And I know that that's probably, being spoiled and it is. But when you're able to look at how many people are working at home right now, look at that. And that's limiting people from being able to work home. I know a woman at NPC that had to drive into town just to get her essay in during a certain time. I mean, we want to be able to provide that for our community. So I think broadband is very important. And then I also think that bringing infrastructure here to support the businesses, like we have a lot of restaurants up here, and a lot of restaurants have to go to Phoenix to buy supplies. So supply stores. I know we have a lot of flower shops that talked about maybe them getting a supply store. We get Home Depot and Lowe's, and look, we don't have to, and we have other like K Supply and those. We don't have to go very far for the construction material. Let's start thinking about what kind of materials can we bring to help our businesses to thrive. So that's where I'm at there.
Thank you. Daryl, here's the question. What do you see as the most pressing needs for infrastructure or capital projects in the county?
I think one of our most important, if you go to my website at SeymourForSupervisor.com, you'll see that I have a picture there of our roads and the needs that we have to improve the roads throughout the county. Now that's going to change with COVID-19 because we may not need 4 lanes to get where we're going as people start staying home. But when you look at how are we going to put money back into our roads, our highways, our transportation is very important that we have a very solid infrastructure. We have a project in Winslow. There's the levee of Winslow, and if that levee ever goes out, you're going to flood I-40, and that's going to disconnect the rest of the interstate to California to the East Coast. And that's something that we'll petition back with our senators and our legislative people, but that's something that we need to have funded because it's a huge thing if it goes out. We've worked hard as the second priority up here at Scott Ranch Road to be able to improve that, which will bring a loop of traffic around. As far as any capital projects of building an infrastructure or a building, the county or the city does not bring certain businesses here. We make the availability through good sewer, good water, and property zoning and ordinances that we have that will attract these big boxes or these other stores to come and to locate. And so I think we can improve that in the areas, outlining areas of our county, other than just Show Low and Snowflake. They've done a good job to get things ready, but now we can focus a little bit with Heber. How are they going to grow? How is Lakeside going to continue to grow? Although they're landlocked, there's things they can do. We still have a lot to do in Holbrook and Winslow. And then we have the tribal areas that we definitely need to bring more infrastructure to help their buses so they're not breaking down, they're not getting stuck. All of those things are important, but we have to work collectively and identify the priorities.
Thank you. We have arrived at our final question. We have time for one more question for each candidate. Same question.
Are we going to have a final summary closing?
You will have
Thank
a final closing statement, yes.
Thank you.
This is your final question. And we'll begin right back at the top of the order. Allison, you're up. And here's your question. Would citizens get more effective services at a better rate if more functions of the county were accomplished by contracting with private providers? If yes, which services should be privatized?
Yeah, well, yes, definitely. Private organizations are held to a different standard than public. Private, they lose their funding, they lose their job. So I think the quality of care would be better served in, I would say, I'm thinking of all the programs. Let's see, we have roads, we have public health programs. With the background in public health and having a degree in healthcare administration, I default to public health because I do know a lot of their programs can be better served out in the community, which saves some money that way. They do partner with providing support to other agencies and organizations in our county, like, NACOG and different resources like that. I'm a big component of public-private partnerships, and if you go to AllisonHefner.com, you'll see that. And there's some things that the county can back out of once they know that the relationship there is there and they can support it and they can see from there. It's not something that I can necessarily say off the top of my head because I have to be in there to look underneath the hood. But I do know in public health cases, there are some things that are better served in the community per their programs and their grants. As far as county roads and other things like that, I would have to get in there and see exactly what could be done that way. Maybe snow removal.
Thank you.
With hazard pay.
Thank you, Allison.
You're welcome.
Daryl Seymour, here's the question for you. Would citizens get more effective services at a better rate if more functions of the county were accomplished by contracting with private providers? If yes, which services should be privatized?
Well, the county government should stay out of our lives as much as possible, and they should put everything back to the private sector to do because they can do it on a competitive basis and keep the cost of everything down. However, there are certain things that we cannot privatize, and that would be our security, our safety that we have as far as our sheriff's department. It's very important that we utilize that. I think it's very difficult to privatize our taxes and collections of our taxes. I think that's something that we have to continue where it's at. We have our jails. Those things possibly could be privatized out. That's something to look at. Most people that have tried it have found that it hasn't been a savings to the counties, but that's something that we are looking at and identifying a possibility if that makes sense or not. But there's those type of things that when you look back to the effectiveness of it in the private sector, the roads, we shouldn't be out paving our own roads or doing that. You need to maintain those and do the maintenance, but even can that be identified and privatized? It possibly could. But it's very difficult to ask a private person to say, I want you to be on call 365 days a week for when we have a pothole that needs fixed or we have a snowstorm or we have something. It would be difficult. But could we partner more with other communities? Could we have snow plows and snow things that they could use in Holbrook at times that they'd, rather than them buy equipment, could we co-op and work better together with other communities to having the same vehicles, the same things doing, but could we possibly do more of a cooperation in the county and in those things that need to be done by the government?
Thank you. Greg Butler, here's the question. Would citizens get more effective services at a better rate if more functions of the county were accomplished by contracting with private providers? If yes, which services should be privatized?
Yes, I think they would. Service-wise, again, these folks have pretty well covered a lot of it, but I really believe, like the jail, for instance, I think that's an important thing, and from what I understand from Daryl, you guys are looking at that right now. To me, that'd be an important part that could be privatized and save money, in my opinion. And again, the roads thing that we're talking about. It's easier to go out and get a good, honest bids, in my opinion, on the road jobs, and get them. And then again, like Daryl says, I got to agree with all these folks because they get to go first. But anyway, if they get to, once we get that done, we can work with people and we can keep a certain whatever we need to as far as backup, for the road work and stuff like that. So there's all kinds of things that could be done. Privatized wide, I'm not sure if you couldn't do I may be disagreeing with Daryl a little bit, but I mean, I'm not sure if you couldn't do your taxing and things on a private matter better than you could a county level, but I don't know. That's something I think I'd have to look at. But that's just an idea I've had or thought about too, because it just seems like they've got a pretty good sized area down there to do all that. And do they really need all that? They may. With the computer systems and stuff nowadays, I don't know. Those are some of the ideas that I think I would have, which is basically the same as these folks.
Thank you. And now each candidate will have time for a 90-second closing statement. And we begin right back at the top of the order. Allison Hefner, you'll get an opportunity to go first.
Thank you guys who came here today. Thank you for putting this on. I want to thank those out there that have been helping me. I am not a politician. I don't know if you could tell, but this is something that is passionate to my heart. I am in the trenches. I've always been in the trenches. I see this. I've lived all over Navajo County. I am very passionate about what I do, and I have a lot of partnerships, private and public, that I'm trying to bring into the community. I want to give these individuals a voice. I want to advocate for them. That is why I'm running. I think that a lot of the issues are being overlooked. I think that substance abuse, behavioral health, and poverty, if you know anybody in your family, if you've ever been affected by this, if you've ever been a single mom who was at the grocery store and knows what it's like to put milk back, then you're going to want to vote for me. It's social determinants of health that lead to the quality of life of individuals. And whether or not I get it, I want to work with whoever does get it, because we have some work to do. And I guarantee you, I will be a champion for you if you get in. So, thank you.
Thank you, Allison. Daryl Seymour, your turn for a 90-second closing statement.
I'm just grateful for the opportunity I've had to serve as the county supervisor, and I'm grateful for these opponents that try to make me better and bring out the best in all people. Although they like to put their signs where my signs are, I found they have some pretty good spots too. So it's just fun to work together and challenge and go through things there. I read this statement in 2004. It says, "I'll remember what it was like to ride my bike down the middle of Main Street with no cars and to sip a soda at the drugstore. I'll remember the cow trails that are now streets that wind through our city. I haven't forgot my roots. I was born and raised here. I love this community. I stand for the good and the good people in this community. I believe in our Heavenly Father and in His Son, Jesus Christ, and I stand for the red, white, and blue. The Constitution of the United States needs to be protected at all costs from foreign and domestic enemies, and I think one of our largest right now can be domestic. I'll protect your property rights and be fiscally responsible with your tax dollars, and I'll try to show that we will be more transparent in all that we do. I did that as your mayor, and I'll continue to do that and work towards that as your county supervisor. I'll serve the city of Show Low and help develop through both good and bad economies, and I'm prepared to do it. I know that I'm the best candidate going forward. I have the diversity, I have the skills, and I have the support of many people. Thank you, and may God bless you.
Thank you, Daryl. Greg Butler, your turn for a closing statement.
It's no wonder Daryl's the mayor. He's one of the speakers. All right. What I'd like to do is just say that, the main reason I wanted to run for this position is because I felt like, and I still do to this point right now, is that the county is not moving. It just seems to be sitting in the same place and not really going anywhere. There's no questions being asked, nothing being brought up to change. Why do we do it this way? Why do we do it that way? And I can bring up a lot of issues that I could sure, talk about later on, but right now is probably not the time to talk about. But anyway, what I want to say is that my biggest interest in the reason I'm running for this seat is because I feel like I can do something. I've been here as long as Daryl, and I've been on probably as many or more projects than Daryl has. And all I'm trying to say is I do have the experience too, and I really want to get the job to go in there and question what's going on, because I think there's one little person out there that keeps getting left out of this whole deal, and it's the taxpayer. And to me, that's the most important person in this thing, is the taxpayer. And I just think we're leaving him out, and that's who I want to go out and champion, is the taxpayer. So I guess that's where I'd leave it from my point of view and why I'm interested in running and would like to ask to be elected.
Thank you, Mr. Butler. Thank you to each of the candidates for Navajo County Board of Supervisors in our district, and well done to everybody. We will give an opportunity. We'll give an opportunity for everybody to vacate their spot, and then we'll have our next candidates up here. A couple of things I wanted to also remind you of. The primary election will be held on August 4th, and the general election is going to be held on November 3rd. You can go to the Navajo County election page to locate your polling place. Also, questions for the evening's forum have been submitted by members of the community and the Show Low Chamber of Commerce Board and have been randomly selected in no particular order. Each candidate is given 2 minutes for an opening statement. Delilah Edwards, who has just stepped out for a moment, will be keeping time and will show each of the candidates a warning at 30 seconds, at 15 seconds, and when it's time to stop. Prior to beginning, each candidate drew a number for starting order. I will ask each candidate the same question, and they'll have 2 minutes to respond. Candidates will get a warning, again, at 30 seconds, at 15 seconds, and when it's time to stop. We will ask 3 to 5 questions of each candidate, depending on how much time we have. Then each candidate will have the opportunity for a 90-second closing statement. We will have the candidates rotate with each question who will go first and follow the same format. Are you ready? Okay. Well, the candidates drew a moment ago, and candidate Melinda Hardy was the fortunate picker of spot 1. And so we'll begin there. Melinda Hardy, welcome, and let's hear your opening statement.
Yate shikedo shitine Melinda Hardy Union She Belagana Nishlo Bitani Bashashin Belagana Dashe Torachini Dashinele Disna Udislede Esina Sha Akunda Tisia Kinda Kehastat. I'm Melinda Hardy. I'm very honored to be here. Thank you, Navajo County, for your signatures to get me on the ballot. I'm a member of the Navajo Nation. In 1997, I was licensed to practice law in Arizona. I'm licensed to practice law on the Hopi Navajo Nation, White Mountain Apache courts, all located in Navajo County. We've lived in Holbrook for 9 years. My son's a Manuelito scholar and an NAU sophomore. He attended Holbrook High School, and my daughter attended Holbrook Junior High. I'm a member of the Holbrook community, and many people, they don't even know I'm an attorney. I'm honored to have their support in me running for judge for Navajo County Superior Court, Judge Division 2. My life changed in January 2019. I learned that I have invasive lobular cancer, and I had to have a double mastectomy in August 2019. I'm a secondary condition person. Sorry for all the precautions. The way I handled it was I just continued to help others. December 2019, I went to work for Legal Aid Office in Flagstaff as managing attorney, and I was on the governing board for that beforehand, but I wanted to help our low-income and indigent communities, and as managing attorney, I attended quarterly meetings with Coconino County Court Administration and learned of their innovative practice in other courts. During that time, I also was enrolled and became a health coach with integrative nutrition. I have different kinds of experience, having worked as a tribal attorney and a prosecutor. Thank you.
Thank you. And now the incumbent, Robert Higgins, your opening statement.
All right, thank you, Floyd, and thanks to the City of Show Low for having us here tonight. I appreciate the opportunity to introduce myself to people who may not know me. My name is Bob Higgins. My wife, Laura, and I moved to the White Mountains in 1994, so we've been here for 26 years. We raised our 3 girls here. They're all productive members of society. One's in Tucson, one's in Spokane, and one is in Sacramento now. And they're all doing very well. I took a job up here in the White Mountains in '94 as a prosecutor for Mel Bowers, and I enjoyed that job. I thought, and my wife and I both thought that we might be up here for a couple of years, and we just love the White Mountains and the people up here, and here we are, and we've stayed. The prosecutor job I took got me to court a lot. I think I did about 50 jury trials in about 3 years. And then I went out into private practice in 1997 with Brad Carline, who was my partner at the time. And we had a successful firm right from the start. So from 1997 to 2012, I was in private practice in Pine Top and did all kinds of law, mostly civil, a few criminal cases, not very many. And then in 2012, I really didn't have any ambition to be a judge, to tell you the truth. What happened was Carolyn Holliday, the judge at the time in Division II, retired. And I thought to myself, well, I could continue to pursue this life and clients and making a living this way, or I could go out my last 10 or 12 years in public service and try to benefit the county and people that would appear in front of me. And so I applied to the governor's office to be appointed in Division II, and Governor Brewer appointed me, and I've been elected twice, and this would be my third election. So thank you.
Thank you. And we've been with our round of questions, and we'll begin with you, Melinda Hardy. Here's the first question. It's very simple and basic. What qualifies you to be a judge beyond a law degree?
Thank you. I have many different types of experiences. I'm a health coach as well, and who would have thought in today's world that would actually mean something? And I do believe in the integration of the different types of courts I've practiced in. I've practiced in tribal court. I've been DILCON prosecutor as well. DILCON prosecutor is kind of a little different because you're also doing the state child dependencies. I've also been guardian ad litem for children in courts here in Navajo County as well as Maricopa County. I also have a wide variety of experiences in facilitation. I've also worked with tribal communities, also worked with chapter houses, and I'm also willing to learn and also willing to attend community meetings, village meetings, chapter meetings as well, and find out what is going on in the community. I think my health coach certification has helped me to really look at our issues with our indigent communities and the factors predisposes that I didn't even realize that was there. And, you know, really, I shouldn't be a judge. I kind of have a lot of the different things. I have performance anxiety and exam situations. And I've really worked hard to overcome and worked hard for Navajo people. I'm also give Navajo test prep classes for advocates passing the Navajo bar as well. I have many different types of experiences, many different types of legal diverse ones. I was a school law attorney, also did policy work with Arizona School Board Associations. Thank you.
Thank you. Robert Higgins, the question is the same. What qualifies you to be a judge beyond a law degree?
Thanks, Floyd. That's a good question. You know, after I had practiced for almost 20 years, I wondered the same thing myself. You know, what does qualify you to be a judge? And really, I think the qualities of a good judge are someone who listens to each litigant in front of them and holds their decision until the end, someone who's polite to the litigants who come in front of them, someone who knows the law and is willing to apply the law to the facts before them, and not make up law, but actually just apply the law that exists to the facts that they have. And so I try to do that in every case. If somebody comes in front of me, I'm always polite to them. I always listen to them, let them have their day in court, and don't make up law, but interpret the law as it is. And so experience, almost 20 years of practice in law, both criminal and civil, and we do have a lot of criminal cases as well in Division II. One thing in a rural county is you do civil law, you do probate, you do a lot of family law. That's mostly what we see, child custody cases. We don't have any jurisdiction on the reservation at all, so it has to be a case within our boundaries, and criminal law. So I do all those different types of law, and that's what I practice as well. So I think experience plus qualities of patience and listening and being polite are all important things for a judge to have, and hopefully that's what qualifies me to be elected one more time. Thank you.
Let's go to question number 2. We reverse the order. Robert Higgins, you go first this time. How do you define injustice? How will you deal with injustice when you confront it in your courtroom?
Well, you know, injustice is a broad term, and it can take on a lot of meanings. When I heard you ask that question, one thing that came to mind to me is sometimes I'll see terrible cases like a child abuse case, you know, and that's you know, a terrible injustice. What child deserves to be abused? And so hopefully, as a judge, I make a fair decision there and bring justice to the parties involved, the victim and the victim's family, and try to you know, in the law you can't really make things right, but you can do as much as you can to bring justice to a situation like that. Also, in a lot of difficult family law cases, you may have terrible decisions to make. You might have a mother on heroin and a father on methamphetamines and some children involved, and you have to make a child custody call, who gets the kids, and you don't have jurisdiction or power to say, well, I don't think these kids should be, you know, with an aunt or an uncle or a grandparent, but you have to decide how to protect these kids as much as possible. What's the just thing to do? How to make their lives as good as possible going forward. So those are hard decisions, and every day as a judge you're confronted with what is the right thing to do? Help me to be a good judge. You know, I pray every day, help me to be a good judge, you know, dear Lord, because that's really what we do every day, to make tough decisions with real people's lives that affect their lives, both in the criminal world and in the civil world. So in the criminal world, with a victimless crime, I've been the drug court judge for going on 9 years. And so that's a rehabilitative court where we try to put somebody back on their feet and get them away from addiction, get them to be productive members of society with good jobs, and turn their lives around so they're out of the criminal world and free to be productive members of society.
Thank you. The same question, Melinda Hardy. How do you define injustice? How will you deal with injustice when you confront it in your courtroom?
Injustice is a difficult question because it is all very much perception, and it also is important for people to feel like they're being heard, because a lot of times with injustice is parties leaving a situation. I had many people talking to me when I received signatures of how they felt their lives had injustice. It was simple as a grandfather wanting to just read a letter in court and not being able to and being cut off. A simple thing is a woman whose husband just got taken into jail and she doesn't know what to do or where to turn to, and the bond is so high they can't afford it. So a way of dealing with it for me is really fairness, is listening. And I think I became a better listener when I learned how to be a health coach. I realized that a lot of times as a lawyer, you're really just thinking for the answer that you're looking for, or in the law, you're looking for the set of elements for a case. And sometimes you will just grasp at what somebody says, and then the listening falls by the wayside. And it's important to listen to all sides, because with Navajo culture and community, words have meaning. And I would like to see things more like specialty courts with mental health court. I'd like to see recovery court. I'd like to see a Coconino County veteran stand down. Thank you, Judge Nielsen, for doing the Veterans Court. I would like to see more help for our people here in Navajo County. Thank you.
Thank you. On to question number 3, and we begin again with Melinda Hardy. Reversing the order one more time. Here's the question. How can the courts help address the substance abuse... let me repeat that. How can the courts help address the substance abuse issues that are affecting our communities?
We do have some things that we're starting, or have been doing, which is the drug court. I would like to see more of the specialty courts that will help, because sometimes we're in Coconino County and the court administration, quarterly meetings with our legal aid, and we were able to talk to the court directly and let them know what our indigent population needed, what our poor people needed, what our pro se clients needed. And they had in place many things that I see we can bring into our county, like recovery court, a mental health court, do more. I had at the Coconino County stand down with the veterans. The person was asking me, hey, how do I get in contact with Navajo County, with their legal aid? I gave them the information, but it takes more for a veteran stand down. A true one. I was in the Portland one at the Multnomah County Portland stand down one, and when they had the whole court there, they had the judge, the prosecutor, and the public defender, and these men's lives were able to be changed in just one swoop. In one day, they can get their lives back together and get on their feet. And I would like, and they're in Portland, big, huge alcohol problems, and they're able to work on getting help with resources to work on their sobriety. And so, I would like to see some of the innovative ideas in other counties brought in here to Navajo County, and to kind of change things up for the better and get some new ideas. And, and also for the things that we are doing to strengthen them. It's good that we have a drug court. It's good that we have a veterans court. It's good that we have the things that are in place, and let's, make them better and work for our county. Thank you.
Thank you. Same question, Robert Higgins. How can the courts help address the substance abuse issues that are affecting our communities?
I think a good starting place is to look at how those substance abuse issues do affect us. And I'd say at least 90% of the criminal cases I see, substance abuse is the root cause of the crime that's being committed, whether it's a drug case or a theft case, robbery, murder. Almost always drugs or alcohol is involved. And so it's a problem, and we need to address it. Where there is, again, a victimless crime, we have rehabilitative courts in Navajo County. We do have a veterans court, and we have a drug court both in the South County that I preside over and in the North County, which Judge Nielsen presides over. And the drug court has my opponent mentioned that we need to get more resources in, but we have a prosecutor and a defendant. We have counselors there. We have surveillance officers and probation officers. We have a whole drug court team that meets every week and staffs every person in drug court. And we talk about each of them individually, and then they have to appear in court and answer for their past week. So they'll have perhaps 2 or 3 drug tests in the past week. They have to have a job or be working on getting a job for 40 hours or do community service for up to 40 hours. So again, we're trying to teach them good habits so that they can emerge from drug court to be productive citizens. And so I think that's a very good avenue to help rehabilitate people who have gone down the path of drugs, which is a big problem. The crimes with victims in them, when I'm sitting there trying to make a decision on that, most of the time of course I'm trying to protect the defendant's rights, but I'm also thinking of the victim's rights and society's rights and trying to keep people safe. And so often, sadly, what you have to do is incarcerate those people to keep our society protected. But where there is a chance to rehabilitate them with the drug courts, and Veterans Court is also another avenue. I'm all for that and try to do my best to do it. I don't think there's been a drug court judge in Navajo County for 9 years like I have. And if I get elected again, I would do it another 4 years.
Thank you. Final question for both of you, and we begin back with you, Robert Higgins. Here's that question. How do you deal with difficult people, including peers, lawyers, or litigants?
You mean lawyers can be difficult, Floyd?
I've heard.
So what I try to do, if the lawyers get too hot in the courtroom, I'll take a timeout and I'll ask them to come in my chambers. I've had to do this a few times. And I say, look, let's tone it down. We're trying to solve problems here and not create more problems. And most of the time that works. But there are some very heated cases, and it's hard sometimes to calm everyone down. The other thing I've learned over the years with my lack of hair and gray hair is that when people get heated personally, a lot of times you have pro-per people representing themselves. When they get too excited, I'll lower the tone, calm down myself, be much more calm as they get more heated. And usually that works. Sometimes I have to take a timeout and, take each one of them aside and ask them to calm it down. A lot of times it's a child custody case that's involved. And so I'll try to remind them that the focus of the case has to be the child, not their fight with their ex-spouse or their ex-boyfriend or girlfriend. So it's a skill that you really have to develop, both as a lawyer and as a judge, to deal with difficult or loud or obnoxious people, because we see them almost every day. So that's generally how I try to handle those types of characters.
Thank you. Melinda Hardy, same question for you. How do you deal with difficult people, including peers, lawyers, or litigants?
Well, I think first thing is to realize that emotions are a form of communication, and that it's important to respect people and also take that time out and listen. I have no problem with being blunt with people, with letting them know what will be acceptable conduct in my boundaries and in my space. And if that includes someday having a courtroom, that will be there as well. And I do see a lack of courtesy in the legal field, and it is very disappointing, and it's very, I don't like that. And sometimes you have to realize too that, and I do realize that us attorneys, we work so hard and we care, and sometimes that stress just comes out in the wrong way. But the state bar does have help for that, and I have kind of let attorneys know, hey, the state bar has this help, and had somebody say, be concerned about that. But they do have like anonymous help. And then later he says to me, hey, Melinda, and this was a long time ago, 20 years ago, thank you. I did not realize I was getting to a point like this. And, he did get help. So sometimes it's just, letting people know that, that there is help if they need that, if they get to a point where they can't handle it, because law is emotional. Law is, you can get very heated. And, I've had somebody come out into the hallway with me after a case and have my safety in jeopardy. And I would like to bring more safe practices to Navajo County. Thank you.
Thank you. Each candidate will now have 90 seconds for a closing statement. We're back to the top of the order. And so, Melinda Hardy, you'll have an opportunity to go first.
Thank you. If you'll have me, I'll be a judge for the people, for all people. I'll listen to both sides. I'll be fair and impartial. I've worked with foster care, parents, indigenous and low-income people, teachers, school administrators, and board members, tribal communities, chapter house officials, Notably Gay Foundation. We brought them into the Holbrook community to teach golf to the kids. As Dilcon prosecutor, I worked with the police, the FBI, Department of Justice. I'm hardworking. I'm a workaholic. I'll do whatever is necessary to learn what I need to. I'll put in the work and the time needed for the job, and I realize the importance of people's lives awaiting for rulings. And I also am honest. Sometimes I'm too honest and blunt, but I can live with myself, and I'm willing to admit and take responsibility for when I'm wrong. I'm humble. It's hard for me to say I'm humble, but I pray daily, and I'm thankful and grateful for the support of my husband, my daughter, and my son and friends. I don't even know how much the salary is for this job. I've closed my ears and refused to even hear how much it is. I'm just honored to be considered as possible for you to vote for me for Navajo County Superior Court Judge Division 2. Friend me on Facebook, Melinda, number 4 judge. Thank you. Ahere. Stay safe, everybody.
Thank you. Robert Higgins, your closing statement.
All right, thank you, Floyd, and thanks again to Sholo for having this debate. I appreciate it, the opportunity again. As a judge, you can't make any promises. You can't say, I'll decide a case this way or that. But what you can say is that if you come into my court, you'll be treated with respect. You'll get your day in court. I will listen to you. I'll consider the law and the facts carefully and make a decision that I think is fair for all involved. One thing I would like to say is, besides being a lawyer and a judge, I've been very involved in the White Mountain community for 25, 26 years now. My wife Laura and I, and a friend of ours named Richard Watkins, started St. Anthony's School, which started as an idea in my head, and we now have 160 students. And I think that's a real positive for the community. It's created 20 plus jobs here in Sholo, and it helps kids become responsible adults who understand that they have to be good citizens when they graduate and contribute to society. We have a community service program that starts in 2nd grade. And so I think that's very important, to not just be a judge, but also be part of the community and involved in the community and trying to make it a better place. So I'd ask for your vote on August 4th. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, both candidates. Thank you to all the candidates that participated in tonight's forum. A big thank you to the Sholo Chamber of Commerce for hosting the forum, for Delilah Edwards, the president of the Sholo Chamber of Commerce, all of her great work that she has done in preparation for this, made my job extremely easy. To Mel West and the crew here at Sholo City TV. And that will wrap up our evening tonight. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Good night.